Hey my friends, Kyle McCoy here, and today we're going to discuss one of the most important steps in creating Perler Bead artwork. Ironing. This is going to determine what your piece looks like at the very end. It's not the longest step, but it does leave the longest impression. If you under-iron, your piece may fall apart. If you over-iron, your beads get all misshapen and weird.
There are three main methods we're going to go over: traditional style, the masking tape method, and flat melt.
We're going to try all three methods and compare them with the help of my 3 sons. No, I don't have kids.
I mean these designs. It's a sun wearing sunglasses. I don't know how that makes any sense at all, but just go with it.
First up is the traditional method. That's where you iron both sides. Now, as I've said before, any household iron will do. I picked up this bad boy about 3 years ago for 15 bucks, and it's been my trusty bead melter ever since. But before you start, make sure that there is no water in your iron. You do not need it. H2 no.
First, put your ironing paper over the design. Then start fusing the beads on one side, slowly working your way over in a circular motion. Never iron in a hurry. You'll be able to see the beads melting, so keep an eye on them to make sure they melt evenly. Then flip it over and do the other side. And whatever style you're using, always put some heavy books on your work to keep it flat while it cools.
Next up, we have the masking tape method.
This is a fairly popular method for Perler artists. You start by tearing off strips of masking tape and laying them on your work. Apply some pressure to make sure they stick to the beads. You want them to overlap, but not too much. Once your work is covered, you want to make sure the tape is firmly sticking to the beads, so give it a little massage, especially around the edges. Now, this tape has created a seal around the beads. When you iron, that little air pocket in there may mess up your design, so take something with a small point, like a pen, and simply poke a tiny hole through the tape at the bead's center. Do this for every bead, and it will release the built-up air inside. And now it's business as usual, just ironing the exposed side in a circular motion.
And finally, there's flat melt. I bet you can guess what that name means.
We iron one or both sides of the design until the beads have melted almost flat, so the pixels will look more like squares than circles. That can be useful if you're making something like video game sprites. But it's still possible to over-iron these guys, so take a break as soon as you see those little circles disappear. If you miss any beads, you can always touch it up later. That goes for any of these methods, actually.
Alright, we've done all three, now let's compare.
Traditional. Sturdy. Feels good. Could be used in tons of larger projects or just a project in and of itself. Masking tape method. The main appeal here is the clean, uniform look to the unironed side of the beads. It's a bit fragile, but that doesn't matter if you're going to mount to a canvas. And flat melt. Very solid, clean lines. Nice.
What's my favorite? Well, since you asked. Traditional. You see, I create a lot of multi-layered artwork, so I need the pieces to be pretty solid so they can stand up on their own.
So why not flat melt? Because I think ironing can be used as a nifty shading tool. Check out the traditional one again. I melted this side slightly more so the hole's filled in. The less melted sides are open, so when your eyes see it, this side looks darker, like a shadow. Some people might call it uneven ironing, but if done correctly, it's a neat little optical trick.
Of course, it really depends on 2 things. The kind of project you're working on, and more importantly, your own personal preference. The choice is yours. And yes, I'm aware that the sun wouldn't have a shadow on it, but it wouldn't have sunglasses either, so give me a break. In conclusion, if I were Goldilocks, I might say that the masking tape method is too cold, while the flat melt is too hot. But the traditional method, just right. Well, thanks for watching. Hopefully you find this video helpful. If you do, leave a comment telling me your favorite ironing method and why. Until next time, I'm Kyle McCoy, and happy purling.